Testament. Today we're continuing in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. We're looking at verses 25 through 40. This is what Paul has to say. With regard to the question about people who have never married, I have no command from the Lord, but I give my opinion as one shown mercy by the Lord to be trustworthy. Because of the impending crisis, I think it is best for you to remain as you are. The one bound to a wife should not seek divorce. The one released from a wife should not seek marriage. But if you marry, you have not sinned. If a virgin marries, she has not sinned. But those who marry will face difficult circumstances. And I am trying to spare you such problems. And I say this, brothers and sisters, time is short. So then those who have wives should be as those who have none, those who with tears like those not weeping, those who rejoice like those not rejoicing, but those who buy like those without possession, those who would use the world as those who are not using it to the full. For the present shape of this world is passing away. And I want you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the things of the Lord, how to please the Lord, but a married man is concerned about the things of the world, how to please his wife, and he is divided. An unmarried woman or a virgin is concerned about the things of the Lord to be holy both in body and spirit, but a married woman is concerned with the things of the world and how to please her husband. I am saying this for your benefit, not to place a limitation on you, um, but so that without distraction you may give notable and constant service to the Lord. If anyone thinks he is acting inappropriately toward his virgin, if she is past the bloom of youth, and it seems necessary he should do what he wishes, he does not sin. Let them marry. But the man who is firm in his commitment and is under no necessity, but has control over his will and has decided in his own mind to keep own virgin does well. So then the one who marries his own virgin does well, but the one who does not does better. A wife is bound as long as her husband is living, but if her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, only someone in the Lord. But in my opinion, she will be happier if she remains as she is, and I think that I too have the Spirit of God. So, there's some interesting things in this passage, and it's really interesting because Paul here seems to some may look at it and say, well, this doesn't seem to have a very positive view of marriage, and I don't think that's part of what it is. You know, it's interesting though. One of the most interesting things at the beginning of this passage, when when Paul is answering this question about marriage, and part of that is that was a conflict that was happening in Corinth. There were people who were, questioning. Okay, my spouse died. Should I marry? Or I'm engaged to be married. Should I marry? In light of the gospel, in light of what God is currently doing. And Paul says, with regard to the question about people who have never married, I have no command from the Lord, but I give my opinion. And one of the really interesting things about this is that really this is not Paul dogmatically saying this is how it is, this is what God says. Instead, he is inviting the Corinthians to really reflect on this question with him. He's given his opinion, shows this is what it looks like to reflect on important matter, that you don't have a definitive answer. You spend time in prayer about it and you think through things. And so really all the rest of this is him showing this is my thought process. This is my opinion and this is where it comes from. And this is why I think that. And he makes it very clear that this is not from God. And at the same time, it's okay if you marry. It's okay if you don't. Now, his opinion is it's better if you don't. Now, some people are like, well, was Paul ever married? Well, we think he probably was if he was a part of the Pharisee party and a rising star in it, because and some people think he was part of the Sanhedrin, and you can't be part of the Sanhedrin unless you're married in the first century. And so, at this point, he's not married. It seems like, and really, he talks about not being married in almost in the sense of being widowed. He doesn't ever call himself a widower. But there are some reasons for that, because you never see the word widower in the Koine Greek. And part of that is when you have a widow in the ancient world, they were unmarried, but they were also destitute, because a woman didn't have financial opportunities in the ancient world. And that's part of why we don't see that used to talk about men, because they still did have financial opportunities, and being a widower did not make you destitute. But here, like I said, it's important that Paul talks about, okay, there are things that you have to consider. It's not just a one thing. You have to consider, you know, that if you marry, you're worried about someone else, you know, and you do have those concerns. And if you marry, that's going to be part of the equation. Now, when we look to Ephesians, Paul actually looks at marriage and talks about marriage, and really uses that as a metaphor for following Christ and Christ in the church. So marriage is not a bad thing. I think Paul is honest about, you need to really consider these things. In his mind, and it seems from his mind and his experience, he's, you know what, I'm not going to remarry. We think it looks like perhaps his wife may have died, but he's not going to remarry. And he's like, but he's very clear, that's my opinion. And here's some reasons for that. And I think part of the reason this is important, I think this applies to much more than just marriage, remarriage, and if you're engaged, all those things. It applies to, how do we look at situations when we are praying through it? Do we look through, okay, here are the implications of this? How do we best glorify God? Well, let's look at those things. Let's look at, how does this affect my focus? How does this affect me being able to do things? And how does this help me navigate in the world as a follower of Jesus? And I think he kind of shows that out with this issue. So he gives us a model that we need to make sure, if we are followers of Jesus, if we don't have a clear direction on something from Scripture, we take time and we reflect on it and we think about it. And we think about it in terms of, how does this affect me following Jesus? How does this affect my my fidelity to God? And I think that's a really important thing to learn. I think that's, like I said, it's more than just about this one issue. I think if we take this principle and what he does here and use it in a way to talk about things that we may not have clear-cut answers on, I think it will help us be better Jesus followers, but it will also help us be better at just when people disagree with us on things like this. We can better see their perspective too, and be more of a people of grace in that. So, just my thought from today. I hope you guys are doing well.